Today on Typical Books, we're going to be talking about the stuff that I've read recently and some of the books that I plan on reading soon. Only a few books that I plan on reading soon because I've got these backwards books that I've been whittling away on, so I'll be picking 2 more of those for March, but I've already picked 2 for February and 1 I've already read. So yeah, without further ado, I've been reading a couple cool things lately, some review copies, some backwards books of course, and one that's on the Bram Stoker list. So we'll start with what I read most recently, and that is Victorian Psycho by Virginia Fieto. And this seems to be the darling of a lot of people. I've seen a lot of reviews for this already. It's been picked up to be adapted to a film, and it already has, I guess it's in filming. They're going to start filming next month from what I understand. So yeah, I had listened to the author on the podcast Talking Scared. There's been a lot of reviews about this. I immensely enjoyed this. It was a review copy, so I'll have a review up on the site soon. My website's undergone a little bit of a retheming. I took a lot of the back end stuff and pared it down and streamlined it. So yeah, if you visit typicalbooks.com and notice anything funky, let me know. But yeah, there will be a review for Victorian Psycho up there shortly. I immensely enjoyed this. And as much as I wanted it to be like a blend of Turn of the Screw and the Yellow Wallpaper, I missed the psycho part, the American Psycho part, and it is very much that. It is a blend of those things. So if you're a huge fan, I know you probably are, of things like American Psycho or the Yellow Wallpaper and want to see them together again at last, then this is the book for you. It is wonderful. I'd say believe the hype. The tone it's written in is fantastic. It does have a lot of factual tidbits about Victorian England, and it's really, really, really atmospheric. It is extremely dark. It gets quite gory, and it's unforgiving. There are squeamish bits. If you're going into it expecting a very light romp, the minute you hit something that makes you want to tap out and you wonder, should I continue reading? Will it get darker? It will. So yeah, that's that. So I really loved it. Miss Naughty, Winifred Naughty, is my new hero in the wrong way, in all the wrong ways. Now, of course, that was an ebook, so I don't have a physical copy to show off. Someday I'd like to pick it up though. It's one of those books, because often if I read an e-copy of something and it's just a one and done, as they say, I don't pick up a physical copy. And that ties in nicely to a lot of people's worry right now. Amazon is restricting the use of downloading, so you won't be able to download your ebooks after, I guess, the 28th of this month or something like that. I saw Ollie at Crim and Ollie did a really good video, and there's been a few other videos about the panic. And I mean, the reasoning behind it, I kind of understand, to fight pirating of books, and as an author, I can really get behind that. It's up to me if I want to give you a download of my book for free, right? Instead of people passing it around. But if you use it, not like I do, but like other people do, as a repository of books, the Kindle is your bookshelf, then definitely download your books and do it soon. But I do have a physical copy of Northern Nights. This was great. I did kind of speed through some stories, and I have a bad habit of doing that with anthologies. As soon as I hit a story that's not really for me, I kind of speed read it. And there was 1 or 2 stories in here that I didn't finish reading, but I will say I absolutely loved David Nicholls' story. That was great. Simon Stranz's story, The Needle Song, was my favorite of the collection. I really liked the very first story, Rescue Station, by Nanny Jensen. That was very, very good. Very, very good. Fancy Dad, that was David Nicholls' story. Loved it. Absolutely loved that. And there was another one I really liked. Oh, The Black Box, David Demchuk's story. I am hit and miss with David Demchuk when I'm looking forward to more from him, because I love to hear him talk about writing. And yeah, The Black Box was excellent. Really excellent. The Nightbirds by Premi Mohammed, I did enjoy that too. And The Church in the Westbound Train by David Neil Lee, an author I'd never heard of. So yeah, this is a collection of Canadian horror literature. Really good short stories, all with Canadian angles, of course, and they take place in the Northern Nights. So it is that creepy liminal time of nighttime, whether it be in the crusted snow or the forests or even the towns. And yeah, I liked it. Some stories, like I said, were hit and miss for me, but some were a fantastic visitation of our Northern Nights. So I highly recommend this if you like Canadiana, and if you just want a really cool collection of short stories that take place at night that aren't like gory. They veer into quiet horror. So if you're looking for that sort of thing, this will be a really good entry. I did have a DNF recently, and it's actually upstairs. I didn't bring it here for the DNF pile. It is upstairs because my husband's going to take a crack at it, and that was Move Underground by Nick Mamatas. And I tried reading this book 3 different times, and I will say I put an okay dent into it, but it just wasn't for me. And it's maybe a case of not what I wanted to read right now, but that's what I said the last 2 times I've read it, and I've had that book for 2 or 3 years now. So yeah, it's not for me for whatever reason. I could watch a movie about it maybe. If it was made into a movie, I think I'd be very interested. The next thing that I read was Everything the Darkness Eats. I finished reading this. It wasn't really for me, and I do have a review up on the site talking about how they have strong characters, but there's missteps within those characters being built. And the motivations of characters sort of shift unexpectedly, and the reactions of characters are unexpected in a lot of cases. And it's unfortunate because they are really cool characters, and there is a good story here. There's 2 good stories here. The fact that they intermingle doesn't work for me. But yes, if you enjoyed it, I can see why. There is this draw to dark horror fantasy, and that's really what this is. And it reminds me a lot of Imajica by Clive Barker. Now, of course, it's not as long as Imajica, and it's not as woven as Imajica, and like as strong, of course, as Clive Barker, but it did remind me quite a lot of that. And I think it is also just the struggles of gay characters. Now, these gay characters seem to live in an area where I wouldn't expect that they get as much weird hatred. And if this book took place in the 50s or 60s, or even the early 80s, I could get some of the strife that they're under. But if it's now, in this day and age, where they're located in the United States, I just don't see a lot of this happening. So it just didn't sit right. If it was Bible Belt area, I mean, it could be 10 years from now and they'd still be dealing with this sort of junk, I think. But I'm also Canadian, so I'm very removed from all of that, in a very progressive city. So yeah. But that said, it only took me out of the story a little tiny bit from time to time. Pardon me with my sleeves, they just have a mind of their own. I did give my best foot forward and I finished the book. I did not DNF it. I don't want to rank Eric LaRocco's work. I still have another one to read before I really make up my mind. I want to read his older work. There was a short novella that came out before. Things have gotten worse since we last spoke, and I want to get to that. Everything the Darkness Eats was actually in my swag bag when I went to StokerCon 2 years ago, and it was on the backwards shelf, as was this. This was a gift just this Christmas. Mr. Ballen presents Strange, Dark, and Mysterious, the graphic stories. I had so much fun with this, so much fun. There's a few new stories, as anyone that follows Mr. Ballen knows. Most of these stories are featured on his podcast or his YouTube show, especially the Canadian story and my most favorite story. The Canadian story is what the book opens with, is Headless Valley, or the Valley of Headless Men. And it is a really good story. If you've not seen it, head over to Mr. Ballen's channel and watch it. Or you can see a lot of other videos about it because it's a very famous story and it's very scary and it's just expertly wrought. Andrea Moody does the illustrations in this and he does a perfect job. They're wonderful and they lend to the tone that we know. If you're a fan of Mr. Ballen, you know his tone and the way he tells stories. The illustrations match really, really well. And I will also say that I loved, my favorite story is the Bell's Canyon story. And it's another one that his show is very famous for. And that story actually scares me. And reading it again, this is probably the 800th time I've heard this story, it's still creepy. It's extremely creepy. The illustration of the guy is not how I envisioned the guy that wants to know the way to Bell's Canyon. But yeah, creepy as anything. I wish that this skull glowed in the dark. The final book I read was This Wretched Valley by Jenny Kiefer. I'm really late to this and I wanted to buy it. I think it was on a patron pick poll and it wasn't chosen, and I wanted it to be so badly because I want a physical copy of that book. I'm still on the fence. I might, because I absolutely loved it, but will I read it again? I don't know. If I ever get the idea that I want to read it again, I think I'll go pick up a physical copy. And it is on the long list for a Bram Stoker Award, and that was 4 ambitious climbers hike into the Kentucky wilderness. 7 months later, their mangled bodies are discovered. Were their deaths simple accidents or the result of something more sinister? This nail-biting, bone-chilling survival horror novel is inspired by the infamous Dyatlov Pass incident and is perfect for fans of Alma Katsu and Showtime's Yellow Jackets. I've not watched Yellow Jackets, but I really liked this book, This Wretched Valley. I've not gone rock climbing, but I did take like a 1-day rock climbing thing, and I climbed up a pretty tall face, probably 50 feet, probably 50, 60 feet, something like that. That's a pretty big rock wall. It had prefab holds and it had some like mechanical holds that were drilled into the rock face, and it was with a group of people and experienced climbers, so it was all very safe. And it was fun. It didn't make me want to go rock climbing, but I also had a roommate that was an avid rock climber, and he had like a problem wall in our apartment and stuff that he could do exercises on. It was really neat. So I knew enough about rock climbing that this book was really informative that way. I found that the book, coupled with my limited experience, worked really well. And I like reading horror fiction or any fiction that introduces me to a topic in sort of like gentle tidbits. And I think you could learn a little bit about rock climbing from reading this book. And that's always fun. It is very Blair Witch, and that I did not expect. Dyatlov Pass incident, if you're familiar with the skiers, hikers, students that went missing and then their bodies were found and no one could really explain what had happened to them, that I understood. That's where the story was going to go. But I didn't foresee the way we get there, which is very Blair Witch. And I love the Blair Witch story. I like the idea of people being turned around in sort of the back rooms of the forest, as it were. And that's what it felt like. So I really, really liked This Wretched Valley, and there will be a review coming up soon. Speaking of the long list for the Bram Stoker Awards, I think the official ballot comes out soon. But my friend Nelson W. Piles was on the long list for All These Steps Lead Down, a really cool short story collection, all by him, single author collection. Congratulations. And congratulations to everybody that's on that list, of course. It's a huge, cool feat. So that's what I read recently and what I'm going to be reading very soon. Speaking of Bram Stoker Award winners, nominees, and MCs, Jeff Strand was the presenter for a good handful of Bram Stoker Award banquets. And he's interesting. It was fun. I liked it when he was the MC because he's funny, but he's not a showman necessarily. It's like having a regular friend presenter person that happens to also be funny. Kind of hilarious. I liked it when Jeff Strand was presenting the awards. So yeah, Jeff Strand, Pressure. This was recommended by collector Fred, and I was at his table at a convention, and I was eyeballing the books, and he said, "Oh, have you ever read any Jeff Strand?" And I was like, meh. I read a short story of his that was pretty brutal. It was good, but it was one where he wasn't funny. I don't like horror comedy. And he said, "Oh, this is not comedy." And I said, "Good, sold. $15. Thank you." So it's a signed copy, which I'm really pleased about, but it also handles sort of a bullying, coercive control among young men. Pressure, as in peer pressure. So I really like this idea. They met first in boarding school. Alex, shy and nervous, and Darren constantly scribbling in his journal. They became best friends in college. Alex always knew Darren was a little odd. He did not know that his friend was murderously insane until Darren asked Alex to join him in his blood-soaked fun. They could be a team hunting and slaughtering human prey. Alex doesn't want any part of it. He's no monster, but Darren is twisted, deadly, and determined. And he won't take no for an answer. So I'm very excited to get to this. And it'll be a little break in between Eric LaRocca books because that's what's up next. Of course, before that, I will be reading, and what I'm reading really truly right now is Splatterpunk issue number 14. And it features Adam Millard, whose story is really cool. I love any story that has to do with the street-involved homelessness or drug addiction as a character world. Like, not someone who's dabbling in it or who knows somebody who's in it. I want it to take place in that setting with those people, and it's really cool. Candace Nola, Bridget Nelson, and RJ Daly. Edited by Jack Bantry, and there is an interview. Who is the interview with? The interview is with Robert Essig. Yes, that's what, I couldn't remember that. It's on the front. I don't know why it's not on the front. But if you know anyone, or if you yourself are ever going to part with or sell past issues of Splatterpunk zine, let me know, because they're impossible to come by, and I only have maybe 7 of them, so I would like some of the earlier issues, if at all possible. But yes, At Dark I Become Loathsome. I'd mentioned this when I unboxed it, and it was a wonderful gift, lovingly sent for review by Blackstone Publishing. I really like the swag information package that they sent with a little picture of Eric LaRocca in case I forgot what he looks like. But they have a quote here from Clay McLeod Chapman. Imagine when literature had the power to be profane. Imagine reading Naked Lunch when it was first unleashed. Imagine no further. Eric LaRocca is this century's William S. Burroughs. I do have high hopes for this, not only because it is the first in the imprint for Big Bald Head, Norman Reedus's imprint for horror literature. I'm sure it was chosen before he read it, and he must have just been a fan of Eric LaRocca's work. But this is getting good reviews among many people. Some people, it's not. And I believe that, like me, they were on the fence to begin with. Have you read At Dark I Become Loathsome? I think a lot of people already have, and I've heard some opinions for and against already. I have high hopes because it seems to me he's probably come into his own as an author, and we'll see what this holds. I'm excited to get to it right after Pressure. As a final note, I will say tune in to Adam Caesar's YouTube channel if you haven't seen the trailer for Clown in a Cornfield already. I luckily noticed it just before upcoming horror movies released the trailer, so there was a little premiere with an introduction by the author, which I really liked that. You know, it's one thing to stumble upon the trailer for a movie I've been anticipating, but it's another thing to see the author's excitement. I'm really looking forward to it, and I was looking forward to seeing this trailer because I wanted to gauge the tone, and I was hoping when I watched the movie Thanksgiving that Clown in a Cornfield would have a similar feel, and it seems to. The film adaptation of Dark Harvest is actually another movie that has that same sort of tone. Way more gruesome than you would expect for something that's quasi-YA or like a fun B horror romp, and very dark. So it does take place in cornfields, one of my favorite settings for horror films, and it's got teen antagonists, teen protagonists, and a weird, gruesome monster in Friendo the Clown. Small town horror, like what more could you want? That is what I've been reading lately and what I am reading right now. I also want to get to Little E by Katrina Ward, which I have a nice copy of, and the Brian Lumley books that I picked up, and I have a review copy for an upcoming Ronald Malfi title as well. So yes, is there anything here that you've also read? Let me know in the comments, or if there's anything that you think that I ought to be reading. Thank you so much for watching, and have an ooky, spooky day.